The moment I lifted the lid of my gift box, my hands froze. My chest tightened, my heart slammed against my ribs, and my throat went dry. Inside the velvet-lined box wasn't jewelry or perfume like I had hoped. It wasn't money, or even something useless. It was a set of folded papers, yellow at the edges, sealed with a wax mark I had never seen before. I unfolded them slowly, my fingers trembling. The first line made my stomach twist. DNA paternity test results. I blinked once.
Twice.
My eyes rushed over the bold words, not believing what I was reading. And then I saw the names. My name. My sister's name. My father's name. And right below, in sharp, unshakable black letters, probability of paternity, 0%. The air left my lungs like someone had punched me. My entire world tilted. My legs felt weak under the table, as if the ground itself was falling away. I wanted to scream, but the room was so silent, so heavy with expectation, that I couldn't make a sound. Everyone around the dinner table was still smiling, tearing open their boxes, laughing at their gifts. None of them knew that inside my box wasn't a gift. It was a truth that could tear us all apart. And as my mother's eyes caught mine across the table, I knew instantly that she already knew what I had just discovered. But why was I the one who had to find out this way? Why would anyone put something like this inside my gift box? And most importantly, who wanted to destroy me or maybe destroy my family? Before I could even breathe, my father leaned forward, his voice sharp and curious. "So, Emily," he said, his eyes glittering, "what did you get in your box?" And that's when everything inside me shattered. If you want to know how far this storm will go, stay with me. Don't forget to like, watch, and subscribe, because the truth inside that box is just the beginning of a story that will shake every soul in this family. My name is Emily Carter. I was the middle child of 3 daughters, raised in a family that looked perfect on the outside but was cracking inside, piece by piece. My father, Richard, was a proud, strict man who believed in appearances more than feelings. He ran a construction company and walked into every room like he owned it. My mother, Linda, was soft-spoken in public, but behind closed doors, her words could slice through steel. My older sister, Sarah, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She was pretty, polished, and perfect, the daughter my father bragged about. My younger sister, Chloe, was the spoiled one. She cried, and everyone ran to her. And me? I was just Emily. Quiet.
Ordinary.
Always in the shadow of my sisters. Always trying to be noticed, but rarely seen. Still, I believed in love. I believed in family. I believed that no matter the fights, no matter the differences, blood was supposed to hold us together. That belief was the only thing that kept me going when life felt unfair. But that belief started to crumble long before the night of the gift boxes. It started the year Sarah got engaged. I remember sitting on the edge of her bed, watching her show off the diamond ring Daniel, her fiancé, had given her. She smiled like she was living in a fairy tale. And my father stood in the doorway, beaming with pride. "That's my girl," he said. "You chose well." But when I brought home Mark, the man I loved, the man who made me laugh and held my hand when I was scared, my father didn't even shake his hand. He looked at him, up and down, then at me. "You can do better," he muttered, before walking away. Those words burned. And for the first time, I realized something ugly. My worth in that house wasn't about love. It was about what my father thought I was worth to him. The more time passed, the clearer it became. Sarah got the support. Chloe got the excuses. And I got silence. But silence can build a fire inside you. And sometimes, silence is what gives revenge its sharpest edge. So when the invitations came for the family dinner that was supposed to be special, a tradition my father insisted on every few months, I didn't think much of it. Until we each found those boxes at our places on the table, wrapped in gold and silver paper, ribbons tied neatly on top. "Open them together," my father had said with that booming voice of his. Everyone laughed, tearing into their boxes. I smiled too, trying to hide the nerves crawling through my chest. I thought maybe this was finally my chance, Maybe my father had planned something meaningful, something to show me I wasn't forgotten. But instead, when my fingers slid over the folded papers in my box, I found something that ripped every thread of hope I ever had. And in that moment, as I stared at the test results, the air in the room grew colder. I felt eyes on me. Not just my mother's. Not just my father's. My sisters had stopped laughing too. They were waiting for me to speak. I swallowed hard. I wanted to scream. To throw the papers in my father's face and demand answers. To ask my mother what she had been hiding all these years. To ask Sarah and Chloe if they knew I didn't belong. But before I could open my mouth, my father slammed his fist on the table. The plates rattled. The glasses jumped. His face turned red with a fury I had never seen before. "Tell us what's inside your box, Emily," he barked. And that was the moment I realized something even more terrifying. He already knew. My father's voice echoed in the dining room, rattling the walls like thunder. "Tell us what's inside your box, Emily." I clutched the papers tighter, my knuckles turning white. My body felt hot and cold at the same time. Everyone's eyes burned into me. My sisters, my father, my mother. Especially my mother. She wasn't saying a word. Not one. But her face was screaming. "Emily." Sarah's voice was sharp, curious. She tilted her head, pretending to be innocent, but her smirk gave her away. She loved drama. She lived for it. And this was her moment to shine. Chloe leaned forward, her fork still in her hand, like she was about to feast on my pain. "What did you get?" "Show us," she teased. My father slammed the table again.
Now.
I wanted to tear the papers into shreds. I wanted to stuff them in my mouth, chew them, swallow them, and never let anyone see. But something inside me snapped. Maybe it was years of being ignored. Maybe it was the way Sarah and Chloe smirked like my suffering was entertainment. Or maybe it was the way my mother sat frozen, hands clasped in her lap, too cowardly to admit the truth herself. So I stood. My chair screeched back, the sound slicing through the heavy silence. I raised the papers with shaking hands. My voice cracked at first, but then it grew stronger, louder. "It's a DNA test," I said. The room stiffened. My father's jaw tightened. My sisters leaned closer. My mother looked like she was about to faint. I swallowed, my throat burning. It says Richard Carter is not my father." The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah gasped. Chloe's fork clattered to her plate. My father's face turned a dangerous shade of red. And then he exploded. "You liar," he roared, standing so fast his chair toppled over. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "How dare you accuse me of not being your father in my own house?" "I didn't accuse you," I shouted back, tears stinging my eyes. "It's right here. It says it." I waved the papers in the air. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Richard." He turned on her like a storm. "Don't you say a word. Not one damn word." Sarah stood now too, stepping closer to my side of the table. "Is this a joke? Who would even put something like that in a gift box?" Chloe crossed her arms, smirking again now that the spotlight was off her. Maybe Emily did it herself. Maybe she printed fake papers just to ruin dinner.
Her words stabbed me.
But deeper than that was the silence that followed, from my mother.
She could have defended me.
She could have told them it wasn't me, that she knew where those papers came from. But she sat there, silent, eyes glassy, tears threatening to fall. And that silence said everything. I looked at her, my chest tight. "Mom, is it true?" My voice cracked like a child begging for love. Her lips trembled. Her eyes darted to my father, then back to me. "Emily, please don't do this now." "Don't do this now?" I repeated, my voice trembling with fury. "Don't do this now? You mean after 24 years of lies, you're still going to sit there and pretend like nothing happened?" My father bellowed. "Enough. If you don't shut your mouth right now, Emily, You'll what?" I snapped, surprising even myself. My hands were shaking, but my anger was stronger than my fear. "You'll disown me? Throw me out? Guess what, Dad? You never were my dad. The room fell into stunned silence. Even Sarah's smugness cracked for the first time. And then, like lightning striking out of nowhere, my father grabbed the wine glass in front of him and hurled it at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, red liquid spraying like blood across the cream-colored wallpaper. Everyone screamed. My mother covered her face. Sarah clutched Chloe's arm. And me? I stood frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. Then my father lunged at me. His hand gripped my wrist so hard I cried out. His face was inches from mine, his breath hot, his eyes wild. You will never repeat this nonsense outside this house, he hissed. Do you understand me? Never. I tried to pull away. You're hurting me. He shook me once, hard. Say it. Say you understand. Tears streamed down my face. I hated him in that moment more than I had ever hated anyone. But I choked out the words just to make him let go. I understand. He shoved me back into my chair, his chest heaving, his fists clenched. Everyone was silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Sarah whispered, "This is insane. If it's not true, just prove it. Do another test." Chloe nodded eagerly.
Yeah.
Maybe this is all just a mix-up. But my father didn't answer. He just stood there, red-faced, shaking with rage. My mother kept her head down, tears dripping onto her plate. And me? I sat there, broken, trembling, clutching the papers that had destroyed everything. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the pain, a fire was burning. I wasn't going to let this go. Not anymore. Because if they thought this was the end of it, they were wrong. This was only the beginning. And then it happened, the extreme moment that changed everything. My father, still shaking with fury, grabbed the carving knife from the turkey platter and slammed it down into the wooden table, the blade sticking straight up. His voice was low, dangerous like a growl. If one word of this leaves this house, I swear someone will not live to see tomorrow. Everyone gasped. My mother screamed. Sarah pulled Chloe back. And me? I stared at that knife, my heart racing, my body frozen. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. My father wasn't just angry. He was capable of murder. The knife gleamed under the dining room light, the silver blade catching a cruel shine. My father's hand trembled as he gripped the handle, his knuckles bone-white. His voice was low, almost a growl, as he repeated, "If one word of this leaves this house, someone will not live to see tomorrow." My breath caught in my throat. My sisters clung to each other, eyes wide with terror. My mother let out a sob, her hands shaking against her lips. The air was so thick with fear, it felt impossible to breathe. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my feet were glued to the floor, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out every other sound. "Richard, please," my mother cried. "Put it down. You're scaring them." But my father didn't move. His eyes, cold, bloodshot, and wild, were locked on me. Only me. As if I were the one enemy sitting at that table. "Why me?" I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "Why are you looking at me like that? I didn't put this in the box. I didn't ask for this truth." He slammed the knife deeper into the table. The wood cracked around it. "Because you're the one who read it out loud," he spat. "You're the one who humiliated me in front of my family."
Family.
The word tasted bitter in my mouth now. Sarah stepped forward cautiously, her hands raised. "Dad, listen to yourself. You're losing it. Put the knife down. We can talk this out." But my father's lip curled. "You think this is a game, Sarah? You think I'm going to let your sister destroy everything I've built? My name? My reputation?" Chloe whimpered. "Daddy, stop. You're scaring us." "Quiet," he roared, spinning toward her. Chloe froze, tears sliding down her cheeks. And that was when something inside me snapped. Fear gave way to fury. I stood, my legs shaking, but my voice came out stronger than I thought possible.
You want to scare me, fine.
You want to break me, fine. But you don't get to silence me. Not anymore. You think this paper humiliates you? You humiliated yourself the moment you made this house a prison. The words flew out before I could stop them. My chest was heaving, my hands trembling. I half expected him to charge at me right then. But instead, my father froze. His face darkened, veins popping at his temples. Slowly, he yanked the knife out of the table. My mother gasped, clutching her chest. He pointed the blade at me. "One more word, Emily," he hissed. "One more and I swear." "Or what?" I cut in, though my voice cracked. My body was shaking so bad my knees nearly buckled, but I forced the words out. "You'll kill me? In front of your wife and daughters? Go ahead, Dad. Show them exactly who you are." The silence that followed was unbearable. My sister's sobs filled the air. My mother collapsed into her chair, her face buried in her hands. My father's chest rose and fell like a raging bull. For a moment, I thought he was going to do it. I thought that knife would pierce the air between us. And then he laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even a sane laugh. It was cold, hollow, the kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl. "You're just like her," he said finally, glaring at my mother. "You think you're clever. You think you can destroy me with your lies." "Richard, please," my mother begged through her tears. "Stop this before it's too late." But he wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on her now, his rage shifting. My chest tightened as realization hit me. He wasn't just angry at me. He was angry at her. And then the knife turned. "Tell them the truth, Linda," he bellowed. "Tell them who her father really is." The room fell deathly quiet. My mother's sobs grew heavier. She shook her head, whispering, "Not like this. Please, not like this." I stepped forward, my voice breaking. "Mom, who is it? Who is my real father?" Her eyes met mine, glassy with tears, heavy with shame. "Emily, I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" My voice cracked, louder now. "Sorry for what? For lying to me my whole life? For making me believe I belonged here when I didn't? Tell me the truth, Mom. Tell me now." The silence stretched so long it felt unbearable. My sisters held their breath. My father's grip on the knife tightened. And then, "His name is David," she whispered. "David Miller." I froze. The name shot through me like lightning. David Miller. My father's former business partner. The man who vanished years ago after a scandal, leaving town with rumors of embezzlement trailing behind him. David Miller? I repeated, my voice trembling. My father roared like an animal, sweeping his arm across the table. Plates, glasses, silverware crashed to the floor. Food splattered across the rug. My mother screamed. Sarah shielded Chloe as they both ducked. "Liar," my father shouted at her. "You filthy liar. You ruined everything." He raised the knife high in the air, his eyes blazing with rage, his whole body trembling. And in that split second, I knew he wasn't aiming for me this time. He was aiming for my mother. The knife glimmered above my mother's head, catching the light like fire. My father's arm trembled, his face twisted with rage, veins bulging at his temples. My mother screamed, her hands rising instinctively to shield herself, though we all knew they couldn't stop steel. "No!" I shouted, lunging forward. I grabbed his wrist just as he swung. The blade stopped inches from her shoulder, quivering in the air. My muscles burned, my hands slick with sweat as I struggled against his strength. His eyes shot down at me, blazing with hatred. "Let go," he roared. "Never." I screamed back. Sarah jumped up, pulling Chloe with her. "Help her," she cried. But Chloe froze, rooted to the floor, tears streaming down her face. My mother sobbed, "Richard, please. Don't do this. You'll destroy everything." But his eyes were wild, his teeth clenched. He shoved me hard, and I stumbled back into the wall, my shoulders slamming painfully against the frame. The knife slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. We all gasped. Silence hung heavy in the room for one fragile second. Then Sarah snatched the knife, her hands trembling as she held it out in front of her like a shield. "Don't you dare touch her again," she cried, her voice shaking. My father laughed, that same hollow, terrifying laugh as before. "Look at you," he sneered. "My perfect little Sarah. pointing a knife at her own father. What kind of daughters did I raise? I pushed myself off the wall, my body trembling. You didn't raise daughters. You raised prisoners. His head snapped toward me, fury flashing in his eyes. He lunged, but this time, Sarah stood her ground. She held the knife firm, her voice trembling but strong. One more step, Dad, and I'll use it. For the first time, he hesitated. His breath came fast and shallow, his chest heaving. The red drained slowly from his face, but his eyes never softened. You think you can threaten me? He hissed. You think anyone will believe you if you tell this story? I own this house. I own this family. You'll all be nothing without me. His words were knives themselves.
Sharp.
Full. Each one stabbing deeper into my chest. And then, as if fate itself wanted to prove him wrong, the front door burst open. Police. Drop the weapon. The living room filled with flashing red and blue lights. 2 officers rushed in, guns raised. The sound of radios crackled through the air. Sarah dropped the knife instantly, her hand shooting up. My mother covered her face, sobbing harder. Chloe shrieked. And my father stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, caught between rage and disbelief. Hands where we can see them, one officer barked. For a moment, I thought he would resist. My father had always been a man who refused to bow to anyone. But slowly, stiffly, he raised his hands, his jaw clenched, his body trembling with fury. The officers moved quickly. They wrestled him down, pressed his face against the floor, and snapped the cold steel handcuffs around his wrists. My mother cried out, her voice breaking, but no one could stop it. As they dragged him to his feet, one officer turned to us. We got a call from a neighbor. They heard shouting, crashing, and screaming. What's going on here? I couldn't speak. My throat was dry, my body shaking so violently I thought I'd collapse. Sarah finally stepped forward, her voice hoarse. He tried to kill her. He lost control. The officer nodded grimly. We'll take him in. You'll all need to give statements. My father whipped his head toward me as they dragged him toward the door. His eyes locked on mine, full of fire, full of venom. This isn't over, Emily, he shouted. You hear me? This isn't over. You ruined my life, and I'll make sure you pay for it. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving the house in a silence, so heavy it felt like we were drowning in it. For a moment, none of us moved. Sarah still stood frozen, her hands trembling. Chloe curled up in a chair, rocking back and forth, whispering, it's okay, though her voice was breaking. My mother sat hunched at the table, her face pale and hollow, her tears dripping onto her dress. And me? I stood in the wreckage of what used to be our family dinner. Plates shattered on the floor. Food splattered across the rug. A knife mark carved deep into the wood of the table. My whole body shook as the weight of what just happened crashed over me. But beneath the fear, beneath the trembling, one thought burned inside my chest. This is just the beginning. Because if my father thought being dragged out in handcuffs was the end of his downfall, he had no idea how far I was willing to go.
The truth was out now.
And I wasn't going to bury it again. Hours later, after the police left and the house grew eerily quiet, I sat alone in my room. The DNA papers lay spread out on my bed, staring back at me. I traced the words with my finger, tears rolling down my cheeks. David Miller, I whispered. My real father. The man I'd never met. The man whose name had been erased from my life. Questions tore through my mind like a storm. Why did my mother hide it? Where was he now? Did he know about me? Would he even care? But one thought rose above all the others, sharp and unshakable. If David Miller was alive, he was the key to everything. The key to the truth. The key to my revenge. I wiped my tears and stared into the dark mirror across my room. My reflection looked different somehow, harder, colder, stronger. They think they've seen me broken, I whispered to myself. They have no idea what's coming. And then my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize lit up the screen. My hands trembled as I picked it up. A voice I didn't know whispered on the other end. I know who you are, Emily. And I know where to find your real father. The voice on the other end of the phone was low, steady, and strange. I know who you are, Emily. And I know where to find your real father. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. My room was dark except for the soft glow of the lamp on my nightstand. I stared at the phone, gripping it so tightly my knuckles ached. Who is this? I whispered. The voice chuckled softly. Someone who's been watching your family for a very long time. My breath caught. That doesn't answer my question. You don't need answers tonight, the voice replied calmly. You need the truth. And if you want it, meet me tomorrow. Downtown. Pier 17. Midnight. Come alone. The line went dead. I sat there, frozen, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone to my lap. Who was this?
How did they know about me?
About David Miller? And why now, right after the chaos that shattered my family? Sleep didn't come that night. My mind spun in circles, replaying my father's rage, my mother's confession, the police dragging him away, and now this mysterious caller. By sunrise, my decision was made. I was going. The next night, I slipped out quietly. My mother was asleep on the couch, still exhausted from crying. Sarah had taken Chloe to her apartment for a few days to escape the madness. The house was eerily silent without my father's presence, but his threats still echoed in the walls. The city was alive as I made my way downtown, neon lights glowing, cars rushing past, laughter spilling out of bars. But inside me, there was only dread. Pier 17 was nearly empty at midnight. The water was black, rippling softly under the moonlight. I walked slowly, every sound of my footsteps amplified in the night air. Then I saw him. A tall man in a dark coat stood at the edge of the pier, hands tucked in his pockets, face hidden by the shadow of his hood. He turned as I approached, and though I couldn't see his features clearly, I felt his eyes on me. You came, he said. I swallowed hard. Who are you? He pulled back the hood. His face was older than I expected, lined with age, a rough beard, gray streaking through his hair. But his eyes looked familiar. Sharp.
Deep.
Almost like mine. My name is David, he said quietly. My chest tightened. The world seemed to tilt. David Miller? He nodded once. It felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. I stumbled back a step, shaking my head.
No.
No, this can't be real. You're supposed to be. Gone, he finished. Dead? A thief who vanished into the night. His lips curled into a bitter smile. That's what your father wanted everyone to believe. I stared at him, my throat dry. My father? Richard. He spat the name like poison. The man who ruined my life. The man who stole everything from me. And the man who's been raising my daughter as his own. My knees buckled. I grabbed the railing to steady myself. You're really my father? He stepped closer, his voice softer now. Look at me, Emily. You know it's true. You've always felt it, haven't you? That you didn't belong in that house. That he treated you differently. That you were never truly his. Tears filled my eyes. He was right. I had felt it all my life. The distance, the silence, the way I was always second to Sarah and Chloe. And now, here was the reason. But why didn't you come for me? I choked out. Why did you disappear? His jaw tightened. Because Richard made sure I couldn't. He framed me for embezzlement, painted me as a criminal, and drove me out of town. I had no choice but to leave. But not a day went by that I didn't think about you. I wanted to scream, to hug him, to punch him, to collapse into his arms and demand answers. But all I could do was stand there, trembling, as my world shattered and rebuilt itself all at once. You're lying, I whispered, though deep down I knew he wasn't. I'm not, he said firmly. And now that the truth is out, Richard will come after me again. He'll come after you too. But this time, we fight back. Together. My tears blurred the city lights behind him. I didn't know whether to trust him. But in that moment, I realized something powerful. Whether he was lying or not, Richard had already destroyed me. I had nothing left to lose. I nodded slowly. What do we do? David's eyes glimmered. We destroy him.
Piece by piece.
The way he destroyed us. The next weeks were a blur. David told me everything about the company he once co-owned with Richard, about the money Richard had stolen, about the lies he spread to bury him. He showed me documents, old contracts, hidden bank records, evidence that Richard had built his empire on fraud and betrayal. And together, we made a plan. First, we leaked the documents anonymously to the press. Overnight, headlines exploded. Construction tycoon Richard Carter under investigation for fraud. Second, we filed a lawsuit. David returned from the shadows, standing tall, claiming his name back. His reappearance shook the city, and it shook Richard's pride to its core. But the third step, that was mine. Because this wasn't just about money or reputation anymore. This was personal. He had humiliated me, threatened me, tried to kill my mother. And I wasn't going to let him walk free. So I made sure to be at every court hearing, sitting in the front row, watching him squirm. Every time his lawyers tried to spin lies, I smiled. Every time the judge scolded him, I sat taller. But Richard wasn't a man who went down quietly. One night, as I walked to my car after leaving David's apartment, I felt it. The shadow behind me. The footsteps too close. I spun around, too late. A hand grabbed me from behind, pressing hard against my mouth. A voice I knew too well hissed in my ear. You thought you could destroy me, Emily? You think I'll let you take everything from me? It was him, Richard. Out of jail on bail, and more dangerous than ever. I fought, kicking, clawing, but his grip tightened. He dragged me toward a dark alley, his breath hot against my neck. You're coming with me, he growled. And this time, no one's going to save you. Richard's grip on me was iron, his breath ragged as he dragged me deeper into the alley. The shadows swallowed us whole, the hum of the city fading behind. My heart hammered so violently, I thought it might burst. Richard, stop. I gasped when his hand loosened for a second. You don't have to do this. Oh, but I do, he snarled. Everything I built is crumbling because of you. You were supposed to be my daughter, my blood. But instead, you betrayed me for him. He shoved me against a wall. My shoulder cracked against the bricks, sending sparks of pain down my arm. I winced, but held my ground. You were never my father, I spat. My voice shook, but the words cut sharper than any blade. His face twisted, rage spilling from every line. You ungrateful little. Let her go, Richard. The voice came from behind.
Low. Steady.
Familiar. Richard froze. Slowly, he turned. David stepped into the alley, his figure tall under the dim streetlight, his eyes blazing. He looked like a ghost risen from the dead, a ghost Richard never wanted to see again. You, Richard growled. You should have stayed buried. David's jaw tightened. I spent 20 years buried because of you. Tonight it ends. For a second, the air was electric. Richard's hand tightened around my arm like he was deciding whether to use me as a shield. My breath caught in my throat. David stepped closer, calm but dangerous. You can let her go and face your punishment like a man. Or you can keep running like the coward you've always been. Richard laughed bitterly. Punishment? You think the court scare me? I built those judges. Paid half of them off. I'll walk free, like I always do. Not this time, David said. Because I'm not the only one here. From the mouth of the alley, figures emerged. 2 police officers. And behind them, my mother. Her face pale but resolute, her hand clutching a folder of papers. Richard's eyes widened. You're finished, Richard, my mother said, her voice trembling but strong. I gave them everything. The offshore accounts. The shell companies.
The bribes.
It's all here. There's no walking free this time. The police advanced. Richard's grip on me faltered as panic flickered in his eyes. For the first time in my life, I saw it, the fear of a man who had finally lost control. No, he muttered, shaking his head. No, this isn't how it ends. He tried to pull me tighter, but I twisted hard, slamming my heel into his shin. He yelped, releasing me. In an instant, the officers rushed forward, pinning him to the ground as he thrashed and cursed. I stumbled back into David's arms, gasping for breath. "It's over," he whispered, holding me steady. And, for the first time, I believed him. The trial that followed was merciless. With my mother's evidence and David's testimony, Richard's empire crumbled in weeks. Headlines screamed his downfall. Carter convicted. Fraud, bribery, conspiracy. He was sentenced to decades in prison. The same man who once towered over us, barking orders and shattering lives, now sat in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. For me, healing didn't come overnight. The scars of years of silence and humiliation couldn't be erased in a courtroom. But there was something powerful about watching justice finally catch up to him. David didn't vanish this time. He stayed. Slowly, carefully, he built a relationship with me. Not as a savior swooping in, but as a father who had made mistakes and wanted to make amends. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged to someone who truly saw me. And my mother, though broken, was free. The house no longer echoed with fear. The shadows lifted. We could breathe again. Months later, I stood on the courthouse steps after Richard's final appeal was denied. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. David stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "Do you feel it?" he asked softly. I nodded, tears brimming in my eyes.
Peace.
We watched as the reporters swarmed the prison van carrying Richard away for the last time. His face pressed against the barred window, twisted in rage, but powerless now. Just another man undone by his own greed. I turned to David, my voice steady. He tried to break me, but he forgot one thing. "What's that?" I looked at him, at my mother waiting by the car, at the future stretched wide before me. I'm stronger than he ever was. And with that, I walked forward, free, unbroken, and ready to begin again.